this is That History Dude. I will be going over Clan Dunbar in this video. If you have seen my previous video on House of Dunkeld, I reviewed the main line of the House of Dunkeld and the kings of Scotland. Today, I'll be going over Clan Dunbar and the other clans that evolved from the House of Dunkeld, starting with Maldred, Lord of Allerdale. Was born about 1015, lived to be about 1045, who married Edith of Dunbar. Their child, Gospatric, the first Earl of Dunbar, he is the progenitor of Clan Dunbar. He had several children, Ethelreda of Dunbar, who married her second cousin, Duncan II, Dunkeld, King of Scots, Gospatric II, who was the heir of his father and became the second Earl of Dunbar, died in 1138. And then you also have Dolphin, Lord of Carlisle, Walthelf, Lord of Allerdale, who married Sigrid, Gunhilda of Dunbar, and Matilda of Dunbar. Now, mind you, during this time period, Dunbar was not a surname, not yet. But for all intents and purposes, Clan Dunbar is recognized, starting with Gospatric. Dunbar would eventually become the surname of all of this family. Later on, once it became the norm, having surnames. Walthelf and Sigrid, together they had Alan of Allerdale and Gospatric, Lord of Bolton. They had Ethelreda of Allerdale and Gunhild of Allerdale. Gunhild married Uhtred MacFergus, Lord of Galloway, and their children were part of House Galloway. Ethelreda of Allerdale married Ranulf de Lindsay. Going back to Gospatric II, second Earl of Dunbar, his son was Gospatric III, third Earl of Dunbar. He married Deidre. Deidre and Gospatric would have Walthelf, fourth Earl of Dunbar, Uhtred de Dundas, Sir Patrick de Greenlaw, Lord of Home, and Margaret of Dunbar. Margaret of Dunbar married Gilbert, the second Earl of Angus, and their children would be from House Angus. Gilbert is the Gaelic form of Gilbert. Sir Patrick de Greenlaw, Lord of Home, he had his own lands. His son, Sir William de Greenlaw, Lord of Home, who married a cousin of his, Ada of Dunbar. Together, their children and their descendants would be the Clan Home, which again is another clan that came from Clan Dunbar. Uhtred de Dundas, mind you, this is the French, this is where we get the Norman influence. The de means of, so Uhtred of Dundas. Those were the lands that he owned. So Uhtred would be the progenitor of Clan Dundas. Walthelf, he had two children, Patrick I, 5th Earl of Dunbar, who died about 1232, and Constantine of Dunbar, who died 1166. Patrick married the bastard child of William the Lion, Ada Dunkeld. Together they had Patrick II, 6th Earl of Dunbar. They had William de Dunbar and Ada, who married her cousin, and Fergus de Dunbar and Sir Robert de Dunbar, who were the other children from the marriage. Patrick II, 6th Earl of Dunbar, who died in 1249, married Euphemia de Bruce, who was the daughter of William de Bruce, the third Lord of Annandale, and Christine Nicutrid of Galloway. Together they had Patrick III, the 7th Earl of Dunbar, Walthelf, who was a rector of Dunbar, which is a church position, religious position, and Isabel de Dunbar. Their cousins were Nicholas de Dunbar, Patrick de Dunbar, and Walter Corbett de Dunbar. They're the children of William de Dunbar, who died in 1253, and Christina Corbett. Just wanted to mention them as well. Moving on to Patrick III, the 7th Earl of Dunbar, who married Christiana de Bruce, who was the daughter of Robert de Bruce, the competitor, the 5th Lord of Annandale. Together, their union, they had Agnes de Dunbar, who died in 1269 and married Sir Christopher Seton, a knight, and their children would go on and be part of Clan Seton. Cecilia de Dunbar, who married James Stewart, the 5th High Steward of Scotland, and their children were part of Clan Stewart. Patrick IV, Blackbeard, 8th Earl of March, who married Marjorie Coleman. Sir Alexander de Dunbar, Knight of Swinwood, who died 1318, and Sir John de Dunbar of Dorchester and Berkenside. Now, technically, Patrick IV Blackbeard is the 8th Earl of Dunbar, but because of the accumulation of lands, it was no longer just the county of Dunbar and the earldom of Dunbar. They had accumulated so many more lands in the surrounding area. The joining of those lands, it became known as the earldom of March. So from Patrick IV going down, they would be known as the Earls of March. So with the marriage of Patrick IV and Marjorie Coleman, they had George de Dunbar, Cecilia de Dunbar, and Patrick V, the 9th Earl of March, who married Black Agnes Randolph of Moray. Now together, they had no children, but their Patrick's cousin and Agnes's sister, over here to the right, Sir Patrick de Dunbar of Westerspot, who died in 1356, was first cousins with Patrick V. He married the sister of Patrick V's wife, Isabella Randolph of Moray. These two Randolph sisters married cousins of Dunbar. Now, Sir Patrick de Dunbar of Westerspot and Isabella Randolph of Moray, they died young. They did have all these children, but they died young. So, Patrick V and Black Agnes, they adopted these children and raised them as their own. So, moving on to the children, I'm going to start with Agnes Dunbar. Sir Agnes Dunbar married Sir James Douglas of Dalkeith. Together, their children would be of Clan Douglas. And then John Dunbar, the 1st Earl of Moray, was born about 1342, died 1391, married Marjorie Stewart, who was the daughter of King Robert II, Stewart of Scotland. They had two children, Thomas Dunbar, 2nd Earl of Moray, who died in 1422, and married Margaret Ogilvy. They had Alexander Dunbar of Moray, who married Matilda Fraser. Going with Thomas Dunbar and Margaret Ogilvy, together they had Janet Dunbar and Thomas Dunbar, the 3rd Earl of Moray. Janet Dunbar married Hugh Fraser, the 5th of Lovat. Their children would be part of Clan Fraser. Thomas Dunbar died without an heir. He had no children, so the earldom of Moray went to his cousin, James Dunbar, the fourth Earl of Moray, who died 1429, who was the child of Alexander Dunbar and Matilda Fraser. He would have 3 children: Sir Alexander Dunbar, the first of Westfield, who died 1497, Janet Dunbar Moray, who died 1506, and Elizabeth Dunbar, Countess of Moray, who married Archibald Douglas, Earl of Moray. Douglas family would go on to take the title of Moray, so it was out of the Dunbar family. Now, before I get too far and go on down, I do want to get to the rest of the children of Sir Patrick Dunbar Westerspot. So Sir Patrick Dunbar Beale, who married Euphemia Stewart, the daughter of John Stewart of Ralston. Together they had Hugh Dunbar, George Dunbar, and Patrick Dunbar. Hugh Dunbar went on to sell the estate and the lands, and this male line generation became extinct in 3 generations. So the Dunbars of Beale would be no more. And then George, the 10th Earl of March, who married Christiana Seton, who died in 1402. Now, the thing was here, James V of Scotland had coveted the estates and wealth of Sir George XI, his son. He was, for all intents and purposes, very rich and very influential, and James V saw this as a potential threat. Sir George II, the 11th Earl of March, had no ill will towards the King of Scotland. James V made something out of nothing. So, James V made up false allegations and charged the Earl with treason, stripping him of all his lands and exiled him from Scotland. His entirety of lands and wealth were gone. He lost everything except for the barony of Kilconquhur. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Now, the brothers and sisters of Sir George II, 11th Earl of March, also included Columba Dunbar, who was a Bishop of Moray, Sir Gavin Dunbar, Sir David Dunbar of Cockburn, and Dame Elizabeth Dunbar. Sir George II, 11th Earl of March, he married Beatrix Hay of Clan Hay, and his son, Patrick Dunbar, would go on to inherit the barony of Kilconquhur, the only remaining lands that that family had. He also had other children: Marjorie Dunbar, George Dunbar, Euphemia Dunbar, and Archibald Dunbar. Patrick Dunbar II of Kilconquhur, who died in 1437, had a son, Patrick Dunbar III of Kilconquhur, who married Christiana Home, who, again, if you remember from earlier, Clan Home comes from Sir William de Greenlaw, Lord of Home, so they are distant relatives. And their child go on to be here, Patrick Dunbar IV of Kilconquhur. Now, before I get into this bottom part, we're going to go back up here to Sir David Dunbar, Lord of Cumnock, because this is still the male line. So he died in 1424. His son, Sir Patrick Dunbar, Lord of Cumnock and Mulcrum, died in 1437, would have another son, Sir John Dunbar, Lord of Cumnock and Mulcrum, and he had 2 sons, Cuthbert Dunbar, Lord of Blantyre, and Patrick Dunbar, Lord of Cumnock and Morecambe, who died in 1474. Cuthbert Dunbar, Lord Blantyre, had no heirs, so his lands, once he died, were absorbed by his brother and his heirs. Now, Patrick had 3 daughters: Janet Dunbar of Cumnock, Euphemia Dunbar of Cumnock, and Margaret Dunbar of Cumnock. But they married male members of the same family. Here on the left, Janet married Patrick of Kilconquhir. Euphemia Dunbar of Cumnock married James Dunbar, the second of Westfield, and if you follow the lines up, his brother, Sir John Dunbar of Morecambe, who was a knight, is also brothers with Sir Alexander Dunbar of Colnsey, Kilbeoch, Aldkish, and Alves, and they are the children of Sir Alexander Dunbar, first of Westfield, who is the son of James Dunbar, the 4th Earl Moray. So getting into this mix, the female lines are mixing with the male lines of the same family to keep the lands that they do have still together in the Dunbar family. Now over here to the left, Patrick Dunbar, the 4th of Kilconquhir. This line would soon die out with Andrew Dunbar, the 7th of Kilconquhir. So we would have Patrick Dunbar, the 5th of Kilconquhir, Patrick Dunbar, the 6th of Kilconquhir, and then Andrew Dunbar, the 7th of Kilconquhir. Andrew Dunbar had no heirs, so this line dies out. The next family, James Dunbar, the 2nd of Westfield, who was born about 1451, died 1504, married Euphemia Dunbar of Cumnock, died 1494. This male line becomes extinct in 1744. Again, as I said, many of the females of the Westfield line intermarried with the Morecambe line. So this family would marry into this family next to them, Sir John Dunbar of Morecambe, and would marry with Sir Alexander Dunbar of Colnsey. These 3 brothers, their descendants would intermarry for the next 14 generations, next 300 years, until the 2 main lines that still remain to this day. We have Sir James Michael Dunbar, who is the 14th Baronet of Morecambe and the 39th hereditary chief of the name and arms of Dunbar. He is also a retired colonel of the United States Air Force, and he himself was born in 1950. And still alive today in Scotland, we have Sir David Hope Dunbar, the 8th Baronet of Baldoon, who was born in 1941. All other lines have been become extinct. I will make another video of these 3 brothers and their lines. It is a whole mishmash and intertwining that I could not have done in this poster and in this video. It is too long and too intertwining to add it to already an intertwining and mixed families such as the Dunkelts. So it will be a video all on its own. Again, I thank you, and please like and subscribe to my channel and to my videos, and I hope you guys like this.